You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
This is the Hammock Hangers Podcast, where we hang out and talk about everything from hammocks and hammock camping to the group hangs from around the country. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Hammock Hangers Podcast. I am your host, Paul Collins, or also known as Skunkape. I want to start off first by apologizing to everybody about not having an episode last week, but the whole COVID thing just really took me out. And so I appreciate everybody's supports and everything on that. But we are back, and I've got, of course, AJ with me, my co-host.
Hey, everybody.
And this week, we have Danny Warnock from Superior Gear with us. And so we're going to be talking to him to find out a little bit about him and how he got his start and how that led to Superior Gear and everything else. So welcome to the podcast, Danny.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Awesome. So, where do you want? Do you got anywhere specific you want to start, AJ? If not, I always like finding out, from our vendors and stuff, how they got into camping in general and how that led into hammocks. So, do you want to start with that, or?
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay. All right. So yeah, if you just want to go into how you started, even camping, and then how that led into you discovering hammocks.
Yeah. So I grew up doing pretty outdoorsy stuff with my family. We went on a few family backpacks growing up, and just always loved being outside and being active and playing some sports as a kid. And then kind of moved around a lot as a kid. I actually lived in Africa for part of my life, and then moved to Illinois, and then we ended up in Minnesota. And at that point, I kind of a little bit forgot about the outdoorsy stuff, but kind of rediscovered it again in college. I had a friend who I did some music stuff with, and he was really into the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota. It's like this area of a bunch of remote lakes, and you take a canoe and paddle and portage and camp, and it's just incredible area. Highly recommend it to everybody to try. And so once he introduced me to that, I've been to the Boundary Waters most years since then. And so I would usually do a trip with him. And then I'd always wanted to do a solo Boundary Waters trip. I guess I'll mention this too. At some point I got into making my own tarps, and it started with I wanted a big group tarp so that if it was rainy, it wouldn't ruin the whole trip. And then I saw how expensive lightweight tarps were, which now I understand why they're that expensive. But back then I was like, $150 for a tarp. What's up with that? So I'll just make my own. And so I found a hot air balloon company that was selling Sil nylon seconds. There weren't really a lot of suppliers back then. So bought some fabric and made some tarps. And this is my mid-20s.
Okay.
And that was fun. So that's when I first got into just learning how to sew. Just taught myself how to make the gear I wanted. And I'd make stuff like stuff sacks and a wilderness chair and dry bag. And I just had a lot of fun playing around, tinkering around with stuff. And then I didn't really sew for a couple years, but I was planning the solo trip to the Boundary Waters. I just always thought it'd be really cool, just the solitude of a solo trip. And as I started putting my pack together, it was getting really, really heavy. And I didn't really have any ultralight stuff back then. And I had my 7-pound REI 2-man tent. And I was like, man, this is too much. I gotta cut some weight somewhere. With all that fishing gear and a frying pan and just all that, it was getting heavy. And I'd had a little hammock just to take naps in and stuff. And I literally thought, I was like, could I sleep in this? And I was like, is that a thing? So I Googled it, and then I was like, oh, it is a thing. People do this. And I already had tarps I'd made, so thought I just need to make a bug net. So I went to Walmart, bought some sheer curtains, and made myself a bug net, Bronchi style. And so that trip, that's what I took. And I had my inflatable pad and my down sleeping bag inside the the Eno hammock with the bug net and the tarp. And I was like, all right, this is cool. Like this, I definitely like this better than a tent. I feel more refreshed. I feel the breeze blowing around in the morning, and
Yep.
but it is a pain. I hate blowing up the pad, and you can't get. It's hard to get situated, and then your shoulders are basically still cold. So after that trip, I was like, all right, I want to take this to the next level. So I did more research, and then I learned about underquilts, and I was like, all right, well that's definitely better. But why is it separate? Like there's not a single night of the year in Minnesota that I don't want to be warm on the bottom. And so I was like, it just to me makes sense. The underquilts have some of those problems. They slide around, and I was seeing people like talk about it can be tricky to get that set up. So I was like, I don't even want to bother with that. So I started designing a hammock with the built-in underquilt, and kind of came up with the design. And Rips Up by the Roll had just come around, so I bought some fabrics from them. And then I'd go to like thrift stores and buy down jackets, and like I'd buy like 3 ladies down jackets, and I probably thought it was weird, but and I take the down out and put it into that hammock. Um and yeah, so I made the design, and it was about 80% there as a design. There was a little bit of issues getting the loft to be right on the bottom, and just the stretching of the hammock, but overall it was really cool. And so the next year I brought that with our guys trip to the Boundary Waters, and they were all like, wow, what is this thing? That's super cool. They were jealous of my setup while they were sleeping on the ground. and
That's how it always
and
happens.
yeah, yep. And it was kind of a short hammock. It was only a 9-foot hammock, and I was like, well, that's too
Right.
short. By then I'd learned about more stuff like diagonal lay and the proper sag, and having at least a 10-foot hammock and all that kind of stuff. So then that fall, I wanted to make like a winter hammock, like a maybe -20 rated winter hammock. And honestly, like winter hammock in Minnesota never even really appealed or occurred to me until I got into hammock camping. I was like, actually, that sounds pretty nice. So I made a second one, and I fixed those issues. And this one had 2 pounds of down in it, super warm. And yeah, so then kind of from there, I mean, at this point, I'd never thought of the idea of opening a business, but people would ask me
Gotcha.
about my setup, or be like, "Where could I buy one?" Or "Would you sell that?" And I'm like, "No, no way, I'm selling it. It took me way too long to make it." And but then it got me thinking, well, maybe there's something here, because I couldn't find anyone else doing it. I found one other DIYer who had done an integrated hammock. This is like 7 or 8 years ago, but I didn't find anyone online who was doing this. So then I got in touch with the only entrepreneur person that I knew, and he started asking me kind of more business oriented questions. What's the market and the margins and those kinds of questions. Start thinking of it in terms of the business. And he helped me kind of keep exploring it, and he eventually became a business partner. And I've had a couple other partners come along with different expertise and some investment money, and we've just kind of been building out the brand. Kind of was about 2016. We're kind of slowly getting going, and then in 2017, I just decided I just need to be all in. If I'm like not all in, it's never going to get anywhere. It's just too slow. So by 2017, I was like, I'm putting every spare minute, every dollar I have. I'm all in. I mean, I sold my house and put a lot of some of the profit we made from that into this business. So I went all in to just give it everything I had. And we did a Kickstarter in 2017
Okay.
that was pretty successful, about $43,000. And we're just kind of grown from there. And the last couple of years have been really exciting with a lot of growth as well. So
Awesome.
kind of the start of it.
Awesome.
Excellent. That's really cool. So with being in Minnesota, your temperatures are a little bit cooler than Florida, just by a few degrees or so. I know you said that.
Just a few.
That's what I hear.
Now you can't
Seems like it's
you
always
can't
cold
gauge
when
from
I visit Florida in
yeah.
January.
But for us down here, there is times that we go without an underquilt, and I
Sure.
thoroughly enjoyed those times. So with being in Minnesota, what is I know you do some custom orders and things like that. What's the lowest temperature that you have made a superior gear hammock for?
We go down to -40. So
Okay.
we have six
Wow.
six temp ratings: 45 degrees, 30, 15, 0, -20, -40. And I have personally tested the -40 down to -38. and it was perfectly cozy. It was like literally one of the best nights of sleep I've ever had because I had the good gear.
I don't even know that I could imagine negative temperatures.
Yeah,
It
I
gets
think
cold.
like
I mean,
for me,
don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I would love to try it, provided I have the right gear,
Yep.
but I'm sure it would, I would still want that, what am I looking for here? The, ability to possibly have an out just in case my Floridian butt can't handle it.
well, see,
But
like
no,
the
I would
biggest
definitely
hurdle,
love to
like for
try it.
me, the biggest hurdle for me at that temperature, at -40, you're out is hypothermia and death.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
I
I
mean,
don't know.
here's that. I'm sure like a lot of our northern listeners are just kind of giggling at like the boys from Florida, which I mean, I grew up in Virginia, so I know what like negative feels like. You know, it's still cold. Like 0 degrees is still very cold, and you've got 40 degrees less than that. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, I'd say
But
down to
like
-10 or 20 is not too bad, but once you're down to get -30 and 40, it's really cold. You get a couple minutes of being outside, and you better be bundling up somewhere. It's
Right.
pretty.
mm,
So
mm, mm,
now,
mm,
quick
mm.
question: with those temperatures that you said you got 45, 30, 15, 0, -20, and -40. How did you come up with those temperature ratings to use instead of like a 20 degree or stuff like that?
Sure. Um, it's just kind of developed over time. I feel like 30 degrees is kind of the ideal 3-season temperature. At
Okay.
least again for maybe an upper part of the country, like that'll get you in Minnesota. 30 degrees would get you into probably about up to October, and maybe starting in March or April. Like that's a really good temp rating as long as it's a comfort rated, which we very much are. Like we
Right.
do have people regularly taking our 30, well below 30, down to even the high teens, and generally they seem like they're still fine. So that's kind of the starting point is 30
Okay.
degrees, and it was later on we started adding more options.
Okay.
So we added the 45 option, and then to me 0 kind of seems like a logical point where it's like it's real
Yeah.
winter camping but not like absurdly cold, and then 15 is just kind of in between. Um,
Okay.
so I don't know, it just kind of evolved that way, and before we'd even our -15 and we had -15 and -30, but we realized like that was just actually understating how warm it really was. I was like, no, you could
Gotcha.
totally go to. I had literally gone to -40 with no problem, so we might as well just call it a -20, -40.
Gotcha.
I think it's good to be a little bit conservative on the rating, but we're almost so conservative it was like almost not helpful, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason I was asking that is because like even here in Florida, my go-to underquilt is, I mean, usually it's like a 20 degree. Okay. I mean, if it's real warm outside or whatever, I might use my 40 degree that I have. But other than that, it's usually a 20 degree. So, I mean, I know, hopefully here soon, I'm going to be placing an order with you because I mean, I've been looking at your hammocks for
Awesome.
quite a while now and definitely have to get one. So, with that being said, with me normally going with a 20, would you recommend the 30 or the 15?
Well, the 30 for sure.
Okay.
For
Okay. So,
Florida, like what are the coldest temperatures that you would be expecting?
well, I mean, here in Florida, basically what saw this past January,
Yeah.
but, I'm
Winter in
not,
Florida happens on a Tuesday, and it's
right.
springtime
I
by
mean,
Wednesday.
here it's very hard to even really, say about here, but, I will want to use it also, up in the mountains and stuff like that as well, where the temperature does get, colder than it does here, of course.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's a good question. I guess if you think, you're going to be up in the mountains, then maybe the 15 would
The
make
15.
sense.
Okay.
But I think the vast majority of the time, I think the 30 would be, I mean, very much adequate for
Okay.
sure.
One question that, or a conversation that I've had with a couple different people in the last month or so is it. People always worry about being too warm. In my experience, and I don't know about you guys, I've used a 0 degree underquilt when it was still 40s, maybe low 50s, and I've not been
Yeah, I
overly
have too.
overly hot. Um, However, I will not use a 0 degree top quilt when it's
Right.
30 like so it seems like you've got a lot more range of emotion, range of temperatures that you're not going to be cooking with an underquilt. But I think more than likely your top quilt is going to need to be more focused on the range of temperatures that you're on.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I've tested, I've tested the -40 at like 65 degrees and it was great. And like you said, you just, have a really light layer on top or just kind of have a top coat sort of halfway on you. So I think it's not until you get up to, mid to high 70s that like you're going to be that you're going to say, "Oh man, I really wish I could vent this under quilt." So yeah, I think it's got to be pretty warm for that to be a problem. And I don't really think you're going to notice a difference between our, let's say, the 30 and the 0 at 60 degrees. I think they'll feel extremely similar.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I agree. So as far as the design of the Superior hammock, or just your an insulated hammock in general, what do you think is the biggest design hurdle that you faced when you were designing your product?
Very early on, the biggest hurdle was, and I kind of touched on this before, but like avoiding the stretching. So when you lay in the hammock, because it's directly connected to the underquilt. If you don't account enough for that stretch, then you start to get some thinning on the hammock. And I will say we recently kind of discovered this issue. We used to have our weight ratings used to be, so we have kind of like a standard lightweight model and then like an ultra lightweight model. And
Hmm.
our standard weight model was rated for, and that's has like a top layer, like 1.6 ounce, nylon. It's a very strong fabric. Um, we had that rated for 400 pounds because the second layer of the hammock also acts like a sort of a second structural layer of the hammock. So it's kind of a two-layer hammock structurally, but that middle layer also, is holding down on one side. So we had that rated for 400 pounds, which in terms of strength is plenty strong. We've never had a single hammock tear on the top layer. That's actually never happened. Um, so we had the 400 pounds for the standard version and then 300 pounds for the ultralight version because the fabrics are thinner. And there was never any problems with the strength, but we were getting some stretching to where if someone was like, getting closer to the, high 300s, it was starting to stretch the hammock a little bit. So we've actually
Okay.
reduced the weight rating to 350 and 250, not because really the strength of the hammock itself, but because of some of that stretching.
Okay.
Um, so that was a little bit of, kind of adjustments and learning in the last couple years or so. So that's probably the trickiest part of doing an integrated hammock, I would say, an integrated underquilt.
And what made you decide to go with a down insulation versus a synthetic?
Oh, wait. I mean, just
Wait,
trying to be ultralight back. I would really like to expand into some synthetic options when we can kind of handle branching out more. Just right now, we're so busy just trying to fill orders and increase our scale and our efficiency that we've just had to be really disciplined about adding any more products and options. Um,
Gotcha.
at least anything major. So I really would like to, and I think especially humid climates, that would be really cool if we could offer that. But we started with down just because it's I think the most backpacking, lightweight friendly option.
awesome.
Okay.
Well, let's talk a little bit about like your operation and things like that. You wanted to talk about kind of the story of your sewing and the manufacturing,
Yeah,
and I really think this is a really cool story. In fact, when we were talking earlier, I vaguely remember seeing your pictures and things like that when you traveled over. But I don't want to spoiler alert for anybody. I kind of want to let you talk about it. It's a really cool story. Yeah, tell us a little bit about your the journey of your manufacturing.
Sure. So going all the way back to late 2017, 2018, we set up a shop in Minnesota, and we started working on producing all the Kickstarter gear. And then we had to scale back, and we've actually been operating out of my house from uh, about 2019 until we're still operating at my house. And so that so we got a few employees here. But as sales were growing, we were just really struggling to keep up, and it's really hard to find good help. So we've been, we have some full-time workers that are here, but we also use some local sewers that are doing sewing. And one lady who was doing some sewing for us, she had a couple tailoring shops that when COVID hit, it almost wiped out her business because no one was having weddings and proms. So that's when we connected, and she did some sewing work for us for a while, and that was great. She did really good work. But then maybe a year or so later, she's like, okay, my business is picking up again, and I don't have time to do the sewing for you anymore. But I have all this family back in Cambodia, where she's from, who are expert level sewers. They have a tailoring shop there. They know what they're doing, and they would love to have more opportunity and more work. So like, why don't we just have them do a bunch of sewing for us? And the more we kind of talked about it, the more it seemed like it could be viable. But I did say, okay, I only if I can go there and meet them and just see where they're working, see where they're living, and just be able to tell people like, no, this is a really highly ethical situation, not like child labor or anything like that. And so I went over in April, and we went through all the designs. Obviously, that's important too. Like it can be difficult to communicate, online with some language barriers, but I could physically be there and show them the things that really are critical to get our product right. And so we went through the designs. We made a big batch together. We worked like 14, 16-hour days, just working really hard, and got a big batch done. And I had the opportunity to just live with them, work with them, connect with them. And then the last several days of my trip, we went to visit the Angkor Wat ruins, which is one of the most incredible ruins on Earth. You've probably seen a picture of it, and so that was really cool. Going to just kind of then do a little mini vacation with them and see the temple ruins. And we stopped by the beach too. And yeah, so it was really, really incredible trip. Ate lots of interesting food, and just had a really good time. And I felt like confident that this was going to be a viable option. And we're also they're like a middle class family. And yeah, so um, we're able to pay them really well, like 6 times what an average factory sewing worker would make there. And they're more like independent contractors than anything, and
Gotcha.
they're just kind of this extended family, and they really care about doing quality work, and they're really responsive when we say, hey, make this adjustment or pay attention to this detail. They're really good about paying attention to all that stuff. And what's really great is they're still not making any like product from start to finish. They'll maybe do the first several steps of like a superior hammock, and then they ship it here, and then we still do the filling here, and the kind of the final setup steps and the final quality control and adding the right components, bug net, whatever. So it really alleviates some of the most the longest steps of the process, but we still are able to sell like all the custom options on the site and keep the quality control here and keep it really high. So it's kind of it's a hybrid model that's working really well for us right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Gotcha.
it's not like that you're shipping over to some uh, no-name factory with some indiscriminate, 100 people,
Right.
sewing all day for,
Right.
Right.
pennies on the dollar. You're
Yeah.
really making a change in not only your business, you're also making a change in a family's situation that would not necessarily have that opportunity. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's
speaking of
genuinely.
like,
I was just gonna say it's genuinely been one of the most like rewarding things that I've ever been able to do is like create jobs in a country that just badly needs opportunity, and they're doing quality work. Well, and I will also say they didn't replace any of our American jobs. They just helped us not get way behind with our growth. And I actually need to hire more people here. So if anyone's in the area, I mean, we need people here too. So we're making American jobs too.
awesome, awesome. So, with you said you ate some really random things. So, I'm going to ask. So, what are some of the random things that you ate? I'm curious.
Uh, I tried fried bugs, which those were like that was the most popular stand on the street was the fried bug spot, and like
What type of
cricket and like
bugs
a
are we
worm,
talking?
like a cricket
Okay.
and kind of a grub looking thing. And the taste was really good. Like the flavor was really nice, but the texture was like you could tell you're eating a bug, and then you're picking like little insect legs out of your teeth for the next hour. So it's just a weird texture stuff.
So it's kind of
Great
like
flavor.
sunflower seeds.
So it was more
Sure.
of a mental thing than a taste thing.
Yeah, for sure. I also tried pig brain, I think. Um, that
Oh,
tasted
I'm
again.
from the South. That's not random. That's
Yeah, no, he eats scrapple,
Okay.
so
All
he's probably
right.
eaten pig brain before.
I like to tell people it tastes like butter, but it has a texture of snot.
That's gross.
I mean, you're not wrong. Yes, I have had pig
Oh
brain
God.
actually.
Nice.
So awesome.
I was curious about brain, honestly, so that was interesting. I also ate plenty of pretty normal food, like good Cambodian food. There's some really, really good stuff that I really enjoyed. So that was fun.
So, what was your favorite thing that you ate?
I think they just call it beef soup with
Hmm.
with rice. Um, and I don't know what's in it, but it's just really savory and sweet and good. And have it with rice. There wasn't anything crazy
Awesome.
in that. So,
That you know of.
Gotcha.
yeah. That I know.
Gotcha.
Oh, I do have. Let me tell you one
So,
funny story about food.
sure.
Um, about halfway through the trip, I asked. So the lady I mentioned who was in America, she was there too. We flew there together. So
Right.
she could translate because they didn't speak very much English, so she would help translate. Google Translate was actually super handy. So when she wasn't around, if we couldn't physically point at things, we would just use Google Translate. But anyway, she was there, and one day I asked her like, "You guys don't eat dog, do you?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, we eat dog." And I was like, "Oh," and then I was like, "Have I eaten dog?" And she's like, "Yeah, you did." And so I was like, "Oh, huh, okay." Then I just kind of had to take that in for a little bit, and then
You
then
know
a
you know
couple of
that
weeks. Well, hang
that
on.
beef and rice soup that
Yeah.
you ate a minute ago.
So anyway, we were back in the States and we were talking about it, and they're like, "So I don't know how we came up about eating dog," and she was like, "Wait, dog?" And I was like, "Yeah, you said we ate dog," and she's like, "No, we don't eat dog." I was like, "I thought you said that." And then I realized she thought I asked duck. She thought I was asking if we eat duck. And she's like, "No, we don't eat dog." So that was pretty funny.
Oh Lord, that's
Oh
funny.
man.
So then I felt
So,
relieved.
so I'm following up on your Superior Facebook page, and for our listeners, they've got a Facebook page. Please come and check Danny out. You've got a really cool thing that you're kind of product testing. Tell us about this new winter cover that you're playing around with.
Yeah, it's so for a while when I go winter camping, I've basically just been draping a wool blanket over my ridgeline, and I really like that for just kind of keeping some still air around your face. I mean, definitely easily adds 10 degrees, maybe 10 or 15 degrees of warmth on top. It also keeps the snow out, so as long as the temperatures are below freezing, you really don't even need a tarp. I mean, I suppose if you had really, really, high wind, you'd probably still want a tarp just to block wind. But in terms of precipitation, you can just skip the tarp. So I just love the simplicity of hang your straps, hang up your superior hammock with the underquilt, drape the wool blanket, and boom, I'm ready to camp. So my winter camping setup is literally like a 2 or 3 minute setup. It's really fast, and especially in winter, if your hands are cold, like you just don't want to spend a lot of time setting up and putzing. So I've been using just like a regular rectangular wool blanket, but I got thinking like, I mean, other people should do this too because it just works great. And so we've been just working on a fleece version that's kind of shaped a little bit more to the hammock, and also with some snaps on the end to just kind of seal it up, sort of like doors on a tarp, and make like a couple tie out points. And so yeah, I've been playing around that with a fleece version of it, which is about half the weight, and then also a wool version of it. And yeah, I think that's maybe next fall. That's a product that I'd like to launch because it just pairs really well with the rest of our system, and just being based in Minnesota and how warm our hammocks can be rated, and all that stuff. So yeah, I've been really pleased with the testing on that wool cover.
So how is the wool or the fleece in terms of condensation?
It, depending on how cold it is, it does tend to collect a little bit, and I don't really know how to get away from that. It does, you know, sometimes there's not much, and then other times that you will get a little bit of frozen frost collecting on the inside. But what's nice too is you can just take it off and just like shake off the frost, and or maybe hang it near the fire and dry it off a little bit. So that's just kind of, I don't really know a way around that. Maybe you could try venting it a little bit more, but honestly, it doesn't bug me that much. Um, so yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I remember the first time you had posted something about the wool blanket. I was like, hey, that's a really great idea. I also like the idea that the wool blanket would block out any light that you have
Yeah.
as well. Because I know
Yeah.
some of the places that we camp, we do have a lot of light. Like when we're at Sartoma, we have this one blasted light that we can't turn off. That it is like
Oh
bright as
yeah.
daylight. And
Yep.
our normal spot, it's like beckoning there. We just can't turn it off. But so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. So so we have some other like random questions about Danny Warnock here. So you've done a lot of traveling. What has kind of inspired a lot of traveling? I know that you said that you lived in Africa as a kid. You've been to Cambodia. You travel a lot of places for your role as a musician. So what kind of has inspired a lot of that travel?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, my parents were actually missionaries in Kenya in East Africa. They were teaching music at a college there. So literally ages 1 to 12, I was mostly living in Kenya. At my third grade year, we came back for one furlough trip. But other than that, pretty much the rest of my childhood up through age 12, we were living in Nairobi, Kenya, which was amazing. And I was honestly didn't want to move to America because I loved it there. I loved my school and my friends and all that stuff. But yeah, I was really lucky to get to see Africa, and we stopped by England and France on our way back and forth. And that was super cool. Um, and I guess I just love seeing new places, and traveled around America quite a lot too. We actually did quite a few road trips as a kid too. Um, so we'd go to Yellowstone and Grand Canyon and lots of stuff like that. And then I hadn't done particularly a lot of traveling until fairly recently, but just with having a business where I'm trying to solve the labor problem, because like I was saying, you just can't find enough good help here. And so, funny story. So I ended up, well, the end of the story is I end up going to Kenya again to explore, production opportunities there. But it's kind of a funny story how I met my connection there. I was at Menards buying some lumber, probably to make something for the shop. And as I was checking out, the guy, I pulled out my wallet, which was just this little stuff sack I had made. I actually lost my wallet, so I just quick threw all my stuff in a tiny stuff sack I'd made, and I just used it for a couple of years. And so this guy was like, "Huh, what's that?" I was like, "Oh, it's just a little thing I made." He's like, "You made that?" I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I think it was a big deal. I'm thinking, yeah, I made way more complicated things than a tiny stuff sack. and he just thought it was interesting, so I just threw him a business card. And then a couple weeks later, I got a text message. It's like, "Hi, my name is Arthur. We met at Menards. Can we have a meeting, please?" And I'm like, kind of laughing, like, "What?" And then I was like, "What do you want to have a meeting about?" And he's like, "Well, I'm a TV producer in Kenya, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I just think this is really an interesting product, and maybe we should, think about, if there's a market for this in Kenya, because there's just not stuff like this." And then I responded, "Hey, I'm from Kenya," and then he probably thought I was messing with him. But, well, we got talking, and I felt like, okay, well, let's just meet and talk and see. And so we met up, and he's just really, really, really cool guy. And I was like, yeah, maybe maybe there's market for selling hammocks in Kenya. I don't know if the outdoor industry's, I mean, it's obviously not there what it is here, but my bigger problem is production. Like I need more help with sewing. And he's like, well, yeah, we got lots of great sewers in Kenya, and the labor cost is much lower there. And he's like, you should come down sometime, just stay at my compound, and then we can, just take a look at factories and sewing machine shops and all that stuff. So that's what we did. Actually, luckily, my work had a mandatory 2-week furlough at the end of 2020, and I was like, perfect, I'm going to Kenya. So I had the time to go. So I had went and stayed with him, and we did that. We looked at some factories. We went to the sewing machine shop, and we're just kind of trying to figure out if that would, be viable. And also we did really cool stuff like visit my old school and go to see my old house. And we went on a couple safaris, and we went to see, near Mount Kilimanjaro. And I mean, it was the trip of a lifetime. Like I used to have dreams about getting to visit Kenya, and I didn't know if it would ever happen. And so I finally did get to go visit Kenya. So really, really amazing trip, and I got some great photos. From a business perspective, I never felt the confidence to really pull the trigger. He didn't really have a background in sewing or manufacturing, and there wasn't really someone on the ground there who also did. And I just felt like I can't afford to take that kind of risk, at that stage. And who knows what could be in the future, because I believe in, creating opportunities wherever people are willing to work, as long as, the quality of our product, and, we get what we need as a business. So yeah, for now, that's like kind of a, dead end as a business thing, but that's okay. You just gotta, in a business, you just gotta explore things, and there's lots of dead ends. But from a personal perspective, that was a really, really fun trip.
Awesome. Well, with being so many places around the world, this is always a question that I'm very curious about. If you could hang anywhere in the world, where would be your either top 3 places that you've been, or top 3 places that you would like to go?
Oh man, Norway, I would love to go to, and I'd love to go to Japan.
Okay.
And somewhere in the mountains, somewhere in the Andes in South Africa. Sorry, South America.
Oh,
That would be really, really cool.
yeah. The
Yeah, those are all places I've never
Norway.
been.
Oh, okay. Norway is definitely on my list, just because the Northern Lights are a bucket list item for me.
Oh yeah,
I would love
Yeah,
to,
same here.
be able to see the Northern Lights.
those are cool. I've
Would be
seen them
neat to,
once here in
yeah.
Minnesota, but they don't happen very often.
It'd
Oh
be
wow.
neat to be hanging in a hammock, open, no tarp, and sitting there watching the Northern Lights. That would be pretty neat.
Yeah.
So,
So those, I guess,
speaking of, oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say. So those are my dream hangs that I haven't done. But some of my favorite hangs that I have done are next to the Grand Canyon. Um, that was fun. And then uh, I did a we did a hang in Kenya by this famous lake called Lake Naivasha, where there's like a volcano on one end of the lake, and there's literally hippos in this lake, and there's this beautiful campground. And I just got some really amazing shots in the morning, and there had to have been hundreds of different kinds of birds that were all just singing, and it was just a perfect morning. So that's one of my favorite hangs that I have actually done.
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. So, when you go hammock camping and things of that nature, what is your personal setup that you take?
Well, I feel like it's constantly changing because I'm testing things or testing combinations of things. Um,
Product development, right?
if I,
Research and development.
yeah, yeah. So like this last cold snap, I did not, we got down to minus 15 the other night. So I was like, well, I got to get outside. Um, and I could just grab like my minus 40, but I already know that works. Like there's no mystery there. So instead we have a hammock that's not insulated called the Starlight, and it has the same zipper system and snap system. And then we also have a quilt that we call the Comforter, that's a great top quilt, but it also is a bottom quilt that can snap underneath and become a bottom quilt.
Okay.
So I took two comforters and snapped it onto the Starlight to see how well does that work, and that worked fine. So, but to answer your question, if I had to pick one setup and I wasn't like owning a business and testing things, I mean, I'd probably have a 30-degree Elite Superior hammock, 10 foot, that would work for me, and when I go backpacking and just kind of normal situations, and then for winter I could just snap a comforter underneath, and that would get you
No,
down pretty cold.
why 10 foot?
I find them just as comfortable as 11,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I don't know why. I mean, I'm 6 feet tall. Um,
Okay.
I prefer to save the weight and space and have more tarp coverage. But I
Gotcha.
know a lot of people prefer 11, so we sell 10 and 11. But 10 is just as good for me.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite type of camping? I know you live near the boundary waters, so do you do a lot of canoe camping, or I know you mentioned backpacking? Is there any like car camping or one
Oh
that you
man, that's
prefer over
tough.
the others?
Oh, that's tough to narrow
We
it
ask
down.
nothing
So
but the
like,
hard questions here on the Hammock Hangers podcast.
I mean, I love flying to Colorado and renting a Jeep and then just driving up in the mountains and going on trails. And so I've done that a couple times, and then just hammock camp. And I also love the Boundary Waters in Minnesota. Um, I mean, it's just epic beauty, and you're always near water. Um, but honestly, maybe if I had to pick one, it might be backpacking in the Rockies. So the last few years, pretty much every fall, I've done a backpacking trip in the Rockies, and go as light as I can. I can get to about 11-pound base weight. And I think I just like the physical challenge of, I'm not used to so little oxygen, and, you're around epic mountains, and it's just kind of a nice time to just kind of
Right.
clear your head. And I have a good friend I do that with, so we usually kind of catch up from the whatever's happened in the last year. So that might be my favorite, backpacking in the Rockies. But I mean, I love it all, and I love doing, different kinds of things and trying new things
So,
too.
have you done any long distance hikes or anything like the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide, any of those? Any long
No, it's generally pretty hard.
multi week type deals?
No, I haven't. It's kind of hard for me to get away for more than a few days. I mean, I got a family. I still have a day job. I'm running a business.
Right.
So yeah, I would really like to. I'd love to, section hike or through hike at some point. But right now, I just really can't take the time.
Gotcha.
It'd be fun though.
Gotcha.
How about you guys?
So,
How about you guys? Have you done any through hikes?
I've done the Appalachian Trail in 2012.
Awesome.
I have hiked the entire width of the Appalachian Trail a couple times. I mean, it was a
Crossed it.
struggle.
Nice.
I have hiked the entire width of the CDT. But I tell people I am not a hiker. I am more of a wandering napper. I will take a trail and just to take a nap. But I'm actually I invested in a recumbent trike here very recently. That's my new hobby that I've jumped kind of head on into, and I'm really looking to
Nice.
doing some bike packing. We have a few rails to trails around us here. I've also been looking into the Florida coast to coast trail. So it goes from the east to the west coast, or vice versa. Um, Looking at potentially doing that. I want to say it's about 250 miles. Um, and but yeah, I've done a couple
Cool.
bikepacking trips and have really enjoyed that. And but yeah. We do a little
Cool.
bit of hiking here too. Hiking in Florida is just very different. There's not elevation that you would see, like except for not at the Rockies or even a little further south on the AT. But sugar
Not
sand
unless you
here
find a
is the
retention
bane of our
pond.
existence. Yeah.
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 So, but yeah. So we did an episode of this a uh, few months back, but I'm curious to ask you this question as well. What is the scariest night that you've ever spent in your hammock?
I guess I was in Arizona about 6 years ago, back in 2017, and I had done this hike with my boys. One was a toddler, so I carried him on my back, and the other was probably 8 at the time. And we did this cool trek up to this hill right outside Mesa, Arizona, and it was a nice hike. But there was a little bit more to the very top of that hill, where the trail stopped below that. There was this kind of cave called Wind Cave, so we went there, and that was cool. But I kept thinking, man, I really want a hammock camp up there, like at the very top. And so that night, this was our last night in Arizona before we're coming back to Minnesota. We tucked the boys in bed. So at like 9:30, I'm like, all right, I'm heading out. I'm doing this thing. So in the dark, I hiked out to this hill, and then I got to the end of the trail, and it's like, all right, how do I get up to the top? And basically, there was like this scale, like this kind of a wall. I was like, man, I got to climb up this wall. Also, I was thinking about rattlesnakes. I was like, man, are there rattlesnakes around here? Because I was out here all by myself. There was no one else around. But anyway, I kind of climbed up this wall. I was like, man, am I being really stupid right now for doing this? I was like, I'm came this far. I got to do it. So I like climbed up that thing and got to the top. And then it's like, all right, well, now I got to find a place to hang, because obviously there's no trees in Arizona, in this part of Arizona. But I was planning on, I got to find some rocks somewhere. So now I'm like, all right, can I please find a spot? I really don't want to sleep on the ground. I didn't have a pad of any kind as a backup. I mean, I only had everything I had was in like a little day pack. But I had my spear hammock, one of the early prototypes. So I was walking around for about 45 minutes across the top of this ridge, and I finally found a spot, and that would work. It was just barely off the ground. I had like no sag in the hammock, and I was like, man, if a snake came by right now, I'm like at basically practically eye level for the snake. But that's what I was worrying about. But yeah, no, I found a spot and hung there, and it was all fine. And then I woke up in the morning and got epic like 360 views of the morning, which was really beautiful. So
Oh,
yeah.
nice. So in Africa, you weren't terrified of the hippos? Because I hear hippos are the most dangerous animal in the entire world.
I was thinking that a minute
It
ago
is.
whenever he talked about the hippos all over.
Yeah, no, that's true. I don't have any hippo stories, although one time when I was a baby, well, I don't remember this, but my parents said that we were doing a safari and the tour guide was like egging on this elephant to chase us, and so like
Sounds like a
he'd
very
drive the
pro-life
van,
choice.
he'd drive the van, and then the elephant would stop, so then the van would stop, and then the elephant would start moving again, and he'd start moving the van. It was just like getting the elephant to chase us, which my mom didn't really like that. Um, I
Oh my
I guess
goodness.
on my recent trip, I guess this is the craziest thing that I did was we were at this hotel near Mount Kilimanjaro, and the night before I'd scoped out like the perfect spot to hang a hammock and get a shot of Mount Kilimanjaro, and hopefully an elephant and a giraffe would also walk by just at the right moment for my perfect shot. But it was covered in clouds the whole time, so I never even got close to
Ah,
getting the shot I
Did
wanted of
you
Kilimanjaro.
have you ever hiked Kilimanjaro?
No, I would love to.
No.
Definitely on my bucket
Okay.
list. So then I'm thinking, okay, I didn't get the shot I want, but the sun's coming up from the left. I'll look for somewhere with the sun coming up from behind. So I started like exploring around this area, and I just couldn't find the right trees. Like everything was so overgrown. And then I noticed there was like this little village, like just past kind of where the hotel was, and this African lady like walked under the fence and walked out and into like the actual game park where like literally elephants were like walking around nearby just the day before. And it's like, I don't know where she's walking, but I guess she thinks it's okay, so I'm gonna do that too and find a better spot. So I basically like just walked out into the game parks and start looking for a better spot to get a good shot, and walked around for about 20-30 minutes, and then I found these two huge trees. It was just epic. So I got a shot there. But I was literally looking around the whole time because there potentially could have been just about anything around, like elephants or a leopard or something like that. So yeah.
so we were talking a little bit before we had John about you had just finished this big long fast that you did, and now that you're done with the fast, what was the total time that you were fasting?
3 weeks.
which is still mind-boggling to
So
a lot of
that
people,
was
I'm
literally
sure.
3 weeks without eating food.
Basically, yeah. I had the first 2 weeks, I wasn't quite as strict. So I was having coffee with some creamer in it. And
Okay.
I had a couple small cheats, like I had a slice of cheese on day 3. I was getting pretty hungry. I had like a slice of cheese. I think day 4, I had like a couple bites of steak. But other than that, uh, yeah, I just had water and coffee. And then, so initially I was thinking, and by the way, we can go into more detail. Like I have done other fasts. It's not like the first time I've done
Okay.
fasting. So I'm kind of experienced at it. Um, so I had done 7-day fasts before, and I thought I'd love to break my record and do 10 days. So I got to 10 days and I was like, I feel great. I'm really not that hungry. My body's really settled into this. You get in this weird thing where your body is kind of like, yeah, we're good. We got still got 30 pounds of beer gut on me. I'm fine. I got I got calories to burn. So I got to day 10 and I was feeling great. I was like, oh, let's go to 2 weeks. So I went to 2 weeks, 14 days, and I was like, man, I still feel great. Might as well go to 3 weeks. And so I just decided, all right, I'm gonna get to 3 weeks. And then I also thought on this last week I want to be more strict. So I cut out all the creamer and I didn't have any cheats at all. So I literally didn't put anything in my mouth except black coffee and water for that last week. And it was a little hard. I think by then my body was starting to be like, all right, well, it'd be kind of cool if we could get some food sometime. So I started experiencing a little more hunger. What's really interesting on these long fasts is I think there's two kinds of hunger. There's sort of the entertainment hunger, like it's really enjoyable to eat a bowl of ice cream, but that's not the same thing as your body being like, hey, we're running out of calories, like we better do something. Like that's like true hunger. And in my opinion, most people, unless you've done, at least a day or two fast, like I don't think you've experienced actual hunger. And so I think there's something just interesting about learning that difference of like what's actual hunger, what's just sort of entertainment and, sugar addiction and those kind of things.
Right.
Um, so, so yeah, so that
So
last week
Yeah,
I did start having some real hunger, but I
did you
powered
do
through it.
was the purpose of the fast to lose weight
Not the main
or what?
purpose. That's
Okay.
really not the main purpose. I did lose like 25 pounds.
Right.
So that's a benefit. I was definitely well over where I'd like to be.
So what
Um,
was
I,
what was the purpose of starting it?
Other health reasons. So
Okay.
there's some really cool stuff that happens in your body when you fast. For example, something called autophagy, where your body will start to break down like underperforming cells or parts of cells and say, hey, you're not doing that great of a job. We need some calories. So it like flushes it out and feeds that cell to the rest of the body. And so it kind of cleans out your system. And then when you do eat again, you regenerate new stem cells. Like there's no other way to get as many new stem cells as that. And you
Okay.
also you get into very deep ketosis, which I think has a lot of benefits, and it will usually lower inflammation. I also think cancers, most cancers like sugar. So a lot of
Yes,
cancers
correct.
can't really consume fat. So if you just starve your body of calories via something like the keto diet or fasting or the carnivore diet, then I think there's growing evidence that that's a good way to sort of fight off cancer. So I do it for sort of cancer prevention benefits. So really the main reasons I do it are like health reasons, but losing weight is just kind of
Gotcha.
another nice benefit.
Okay.
And then again, it's sort of the challenge of it, like just I guess I like to push myself and see what's possible.
And you don't get headaches or anything like that whenever you
I don't
start
remember
it?
getting headaches.
Because I know, like, I mean, just for example, you know, this past week with me being sick, of course, I hadn't felt like eating.
Hmm.
And just for me not, eating while being sick, I mean, I start to get real bad headaches from not eating and stuff.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know
I
what I could do
Yeah, I'm
for
guessing.
that, but
Um, I think most people, unless they've really gone out of their way to pursue like the keto diet or intermittent fasting or long fasting or
mhm,
carnivore, like you have to really go out of your way to get your body to like be out of sugar burner mode. And I just think most people experience it, very little in their life.
gotcha.
Um, and so I think it's probably your body is just not used to transitioning into the fat burning mode. And so I think just with more um, just practice or exposing yourself to that. I find my body shifts really naturally and without a lot of problems,
Gotcha.
generally. But
I think that
I've
was
been doing. Go ahead.
I think that was one of the things that kind of inspired me to when I first started doing keto a few years ago. The whole the research base that says that a lot of the cancer cells and things like that have trouble processing the fats and everything, and it worked really well for me because I'm not really a huge fan of just sweets. But
Right.
with that typical American diet, a lot of the refined sugars, a lot of the hidden refined sugars in a lot of things,
Yeah.
getting rid of all those. And 100% agree that when you do it, your body feels a lot better than you think your body should feel,
Yeah.
just because of the reliance on either known or unknown sugars that we are taking in. Now, with
Yeah.
that said, I know like I've got a specific diet that that I'm eating right now, and with that, some of our listeners may have a specific diet that they're on, and you're doing carnivore. How would you translate that carnivore diet into your backpacking food? Like, what would that look differently? Because you're not going to take a Mountain House beef stroganoff out into the trail if you're having a diet. So what is backpacking food? How is that different for you now?
um, I will sometimes. I guess two ways I can answer the question. Sometimes I'll just say, you know what, this is not my normal routine, so I'm gonna just alter my diet to make this work. Like the year I went to Kenya, I'd actually done 9 months very strict carnivore, but when I went to Kenya, I didn't want to be like this weird snobby American, so I was like, I'm just gonna eat whatever is there. Plus, there's a lot of good food I want to enjoy. Um, so sometimes I just say, you know what, I'm gonna take a pause on my normal diet and do that. But I
Gotcha.
definitely think I can do it. Like I would bring, and I actually I've done almost carnivore backpacking trips, and I have to bring a lot of beef jerky, bacon jerky. I think is really good, and then I'll bring like a block of hard cheese. That's good for snacks. Um, and then yeah, I mean I think and then like beef, those beef links kind of, or those I think I'm saying it wrong. No,
Like
the
a
beef
Slim
sticks.
Jim kind of thing?
Um, yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah, or the beef sticks. So I
Yeah.
know I'm confident I could do a trip with just those kind of foods, and I may do that this fall.
Awesome. I'd be
Yeah.
really interested to see how that all works out. Now, another thing that you do, you're a musician, and you said that you're in a previous life that was your career, that was your job. So talk a little bit about the instruments that you play, the type of music that you play. And I know you've taken some pictures of some of the sets that you've played on, and they look like really cool venues. So tell us a little bit about that part of Danny.
Sure. Well, I grew up in a very musical family. Everyone in our family played instruments and sang and wrote songs. So it was kind of natural that I just decided I want to become a professional musician. So I did go to college and studied philosophy, but at the time I was studying with a really good local drummer, and that was my goal, is just to be a freelance drummer. So yeah, that's what I did in my early 20s. Just played local gigs, some recordings, had up to about 30 students that I was teaching, and kind of cobbled together a living in the Twin Cities, and had that's moderate success, not wildly successful, but I was making a living being a musician, and that was pretty cool. But then by my late 20s, my wife and I were like, man, we're just not where we want to be financially, and maybe there's other things I could do with my life. So I decided to make the transition, and I went into software development. So that's been my main career since then. But what's cool is because I had put in that time building, the skill set to be a musician, and then building the network to like have gigs. I'm able to keep doing quite a few gigs on the side. I do um, my if you've seen dueling pianos or piano bar, where like the piano player just takes like any requests. I'll do drumming with piano bars, probably do 10 or 20 weddings a year and other corporate gigs as the drummer accompanying the pianists. Um, and then I used to do some jazz back in the day. I was like in a swing band. Um, and then, I've done some rock gigs here and there. But what I do more than anything else is actually playing at my church, which is a really great church in Minnesota called Eagle Brook, and a lot of great musicians there. So yeah, most weekends I'm playing drums or keyboards actually at Eagle Brook Church. So I do both of those things there. Lately more drumming, but for a while I was actually doing a lot of keyboards, but lately more drumming. So yeah, that definitely keeps me busy, and I feel really fortunate to get to do my hobby still on the side, and a lot of great people that I get to play with.
Awesome. So if you were going to a concert and you could pick three acts, who would you? What would be your perfect concert with the three acts?
Uh, I mean, I'm kind of a sucker for Coldplay.
Okay.
Um, some of the other stuff is maybe more obscure. There's this guy Jacob Collier, who is, in my opinion, the greatest musician of who has ever lived, and I'm counting like Mozart. He's just a freak, who's like kind of bending the rules of harmony and rhythm, and he's won several Grammys by the time he was like 22. He started off as kind of this YouTube kid making a cappella videos, but he plays tons of instruments. So anyway, he's insane. He blows my mind. Jacob Collier. And then, honestly, lately, and I don't actually go to very many concerts, like literally like one every 5 or 10 years. I don't know, just it's sometimes as a musician, it's hard to go to a concert because you want to be the one on the stage. You don't want to watch someone else, and you can't enjoy it in the same way because you can't help but to analyze everything. It's hard to just take in an experience without being analytical. At least for me, that's very hard. Um, but this is gonna sound random, but there's this freestyle rapper called Harry Mack who I'm kind of obsessed with lately, and he's I think pushing the. I'm not even into freestyle rap. Like I like some hip hop, but I'm not like a super big hip hop head or anything. But this guy Harry Mack does freestyle rapping that blows your mind. And I was literally today I was like, man, is there a concert anywhere nearby? Because I would go see this guy because like it's something special. So anyway, probably maybe not what you were expecting.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to check out these two. And yeah, I love obscure. Um, I think like for me, I play a lot of stringed instruments. So there's a kind of a modern flamenco guitarist called Jesse Cook that does some like really funky like Latin and
Okay,
flamenco, and so he just kind of blows my mind with the ability that he has with the guitar. I think that was one of the things like growing up, Appalachian Mountain old time bluegrass music. I really wasn't into as a kid, but after becoming a musician and things like that, and looking at a lot of friends that play, I can totally respect the talent and the ability that goes into that type of music. And now I just love it. I absolutely love it.
cool. That's awesome.
I think that's after listening to some of this music or some of the stuff they call music today. Also, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
some of the stuff that they call music today is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll take the bluegrass and all that over
yeah.
any of it.
So you were at HangCon this year. How would you explain, or maybe the importance of going to a group hang, maybe like HangCon or Fall Sprawl, or Maha or Niha, or some of those other hangs? I think, and this is a conversation we had with Cal and Kristen from Yobo. I think I think you have a product that's really awesome, but it's really helps for people to actually see it in person and experience that. So, just share your experience of group hangs.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the group hangs. I've been to, HangCon twice, and last year I decided to just go to as many as I could go to. So I went down to, Pennsylvania and Louisiana, and the ones up here in Minnesota and Wisconsin are a little easier for me to get to. But it's just like it's such a fun community. Like the people are just so cool, just down to earth, and friendly, and people just, willing to help each other out and teach each other things and show their setups. So it's definitely just a really, really cool community. As a vendor, yeah, like you're saying, it's really great for people to see it in person and to try it out. And, they'll lay in the Superior hammock and they're like, wow, like instant heat. And they've never maybe experienced that before with a regular underquilt, to like literally 2 seconds, you're feeling warmth on your butt. So that's kind of like a lot of times when people lay in it, they're just kind of, instant believers and having that warmth when you need it. And, also I think there's value in people seeing, a face behind a company, and realize, we're just not like some giant nameless corporation. Like, I'm a person, and,
Right.
I'm trying to do the best I can to put good products in the world and deliver, and just for people to kind of see the human side of the business. And, I don't really feel like I'm this successful person, I'm just, trying to get to the next step as a business, and grow. So yeah, I think just that kind of human level as a business owner is good and I've just met so many great people who, have become fans of what we're doing just through, friendship of hanging out and talking and, or seeing the gear in person.
Now, we've talked a lot about your hammocks. You've talked about your Superior hammock. You talked about your Starlight hammock, but talk about some of the other gear that you sell as well.
Yeah, I'd say there's two other. Well, I think we have a great suspension system that's really easy to adjust. But our tarp kind of flies under the radar, I would say, the Superior Shelter. Um, like the whole point of my brand, like our motto is simple, cozy, light. And like that really is our guiding light. Like everything we do needs to be simple, really welcoming for new people, just as easy as possible to set up without, you know, lacking essential features, let's say like a ridge line, like, and a good hammock needs a ridge line. So we're going as simple as possible without like reducing the quality, and just, really cozy, warm gear. So our tarp really brings that simplicity. We've got really great metal buckle adjuster on the end that I designed, and all of the ropes clip in and are adjustable, so you can kind of just move around the ropes and clip them in, and you don't need to have to mess with any knots. And then our doors close up with bungees in a really slick way. So yeah, I think our tarp is um, kind of underrated, honestly, just how quick and easy it is to set it up and adjust it. And then one other really cool product is the cocoon. So a couple years ago, we did a big overhaul of the Superior hammock and added zippers to it. And honestly, the reason I pulled the trigger on doing the zipper is this cocoon idea. And the cocoon is it's an insulated layer that zips on top. I'm kind of a little bit more lightly insulated layer. We have a 50-degree and a 40-degree. We don't go colder than that, but it just creates this really nice seal on top. So your feet are they're zipped in, and then the top part is it's kind of like a regular top quilt. Well, it is just like a regular top quilt, and it's really great for kind of mild weather, like let's say down to 40 degrees, or if you want to pair it with a normal top quilt, just slide your top quilt under there, and it's like really effective for winter. And just to give you an idea, last winter, my setup was a 50-degree cocoon and only a 45-degree top quilt, and we got down to -2, and I was perfectly great. I was warm. I did have the wool blanket on top too. But that cocoon is just this really efficient way of adding warmth. And unlike other cocoons, you can still get a really good diagonal lay. So it's not like a mummy style cocoon. Yeah, like you can get a full true diagonal lay with the cocoon. So it's a really good
Wow.
complement to the Superior hammock or the Starlight hammock. And also one
Talking
more thing,
about
all of
comfort
our
rated.
yeah. So and all of our zipper accessories and all of our cocoons accessories are interchangeable. It doesn't matter like the length of the hammock, the Starlight or the Superior. Like it's all extremely modular. I've tried to create like as modular a system as possible. So
That's awesome. I think that's one of the key things that I think really makes your product stand out, is the modularity. We talk about that in the hammock world. All of our gear is so modular, and when you can get down to those micro adjustments, changing out what underquilt, but you're still getting the benefit of, having the underquilt attached, either with snaps or zippers or anything along those lines. I think you've really, really opened that door for that customization, without having to buy a completely new setup. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And I'll say about our snap system. So the Starlight, like I said, is a non-insulated hammock, and then you can snap the comforter on as an underquilt. But because of the snaps hold it in place, there's still there's no fiddling, there's no sliding around, there's no air gaps. So it's actually an incredibly good underquilt system. And again, you could add that to the Superior hammock to get into those winter temps. So yeah.
So yeah, if you're out in the market and you're looking for a great, Superior gear, really has their numbers in order, their ducks in a row, and there's no fiddle factor with the underquilt. I think that's one of the biggest and the easiest way to ruin a night in a hammock for me, especially an underquilt that you think is all set up, and then you realize at 2:00 in the morning, oh, my feet are frozen now. You don't get that with your products. Now recently I have moved more toward a bridge hammock. Any thoughts on maybe coming out with a Superior bridge?
It's definitely something that I want to do. I think I said this earlier. We're focused on, scaling and delivering what we have now before we add anything major. But I would like to do that, and I've definitely thought a lot about it, and I have a few ideas in my head. So,
well, if you need some research and development, sign me up.
All right, sounds good.
Good deal. Well, another random question, just out of the blue here. If you could have any superpower, what would you have?
Unlimited time.
Struggle is real. The struggle is real. Awesome. So, what's your favorite season for camping?
Early summer in Minnesota is beautiful.
Okay. So, what about that early
Like
summer
June.
is enticing for you?
I just think about, early summer, the bugs aren't usually too bad yet, and usually the fishing is good up in the boundary waters, and it's not usually super hot yet, by August, July and August, it's a lot hotter. And it's just like, it still feels like you just got out of winter. So just the fact that the sun's out and you can wear a t-shirt, it's like, just feels so good.
Awesome. So
yeah,
what
are
the
still temperatures on, early summer? What are the temperatures early summer?
I mean, it could be anywhere from 50s up to 90, but it might tend to be in the 70s or 80s on a warm day.
Okay.
a little cooler, Paul, than here in August.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So yeah, we're still kind of playing around with ideas of what to do with our summer trip that we usually take, but Minnesota and the Boundary Waters are definitely a potential for this upcoming summer. So yeah, I'll definitely give you a holler if we end up coming up your way.
Definitely.
But yeah, that's all that I had, Paul. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got one more. Yep, I've got one more that I ask all of our vendors whenever I have any of our vendors on. This is the question I ask them all. What are your top 3 tips that you would give to somebody new just starting out into hammock camping?
Buy a Superior hammock. Can I say that?
There you go.
Absolutely.
Top 3 tips. I mean, just don't skimp on your bottom insulation. Whatever you're gonna do, like, it's you don't want a cold butt.
Absolutely.
And I would say go to a group hang, just so you can see what people are doing, and maybe someone can loan you something to try. And other than that, like, just do good research and see what's out there, and you'll kind of get a sense of maybe what's in your budget or what's not in your budget. But just I would say you don't want to just head out in the woods with an and not like a plan. Not to
Right.
knock on Eno. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to camp, you need the equipment that's made for
Right.
camping. So.
Sure.
Yeah, I thoroughly remember my first night in a hammock, that I was like, oh, it's only going to be, 67 degrees. I'm not going to get cold. And I froze my butt off.
Yep. It's not intuitive until you try it, I guess.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it don't
Misery
take.
is sometimes a great teacher.
Yes, it don't take but a couple times to learn. Usually one time.
Yep.
There's a couple
Yep.
things that I've learned just from one experience.
So, do you still camp regularly with the rest of your family? Is everybody on board with the hammock scene, or?
Oh yeah, I mean everyone I know, I've gotten into hammocks. Uh, yeah, I take my. I've been a few times with my wife and my kids. So yeah, I take them camping. It might tend to be a little shorter, like an overnight or a couple nights. But yeah, they love it. They're into it.
Yeah,
Good
I've
deal.
got my both my kids completely converted. They would get. My wife is still very iffy. I will say, props to her. Her very first full night in a hammock, and that you stayed all the way warm, was Saturday night at Hang Con this year when it was like 28
Nice.
degrees or something like that.
Oh wow,
So
that's nice.
I threw all of my hot stuff at her. I was like, all right, you're getting a 0 degree this, a 0 degree that. You have a top cover. We're gonna throw an extra blanket in there. It's like, I gotta make this
Nice.
count.
I gotta brag on my wife too. Her very first time hammock camping was at the Wisconsin Frozen Butt Hang, and we
Oh,
got
wow.
down to I think we got down to about 0, and that was her first hammocking ever. But she loved it. She was like, man, we got to do that again. So yeah, she's a trooper.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, my whole family, we do camping all the time. My wife is definitely a lot more of the pop up car camping camper kind of situation, but she will do it. And hey, she
Nice.
lets me do it, and that's all that matters. We have great adventures together.
Awesome.
It's awesome. All right. Well, if you don't have anything else, AJ, we will go ahead and wrap it up. Did you have any questions for us, Danny?
Can't think of anything.
Anything?
I'm gonna say thanks for doing what you guys do and helping people learn what's out
Not
there.
a problem.
It's awesome.
Yeah, we really
All right,
appreciate
then.
you coming on, and like I said,
My pleasure.
whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You make some great stuff.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So,
Appreciate it, guys.
all right, then. Again, thank you for coming on and chatting with us for a while. And hopefully here soon, be looking for an order to come through with my name on it.
Awesome.
And anytime you want to come back on, just give us a holler, and we'll be glad to have you back on to chat some more.
For sure. Sounds good. Thanks so much.
All right, everybody. So make sure to check out all of Danny's gear and everything at superiorgear.com. You can find him on Facebook as well. Just search up Superior Gear there. Give him a follow. And like AJ and I was saying earlier, it's some great gear. You can't go wrong. So check them out. Maybe place an order, and we'll talk to everybody next week. I don't know who. I think next week we have Yobo Gear coming back on. They got some exciting news to tell everybody. So be looking forward to that. And until next week, happy hanging, everyone.